Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond, an MCU an MCU fan podcast.
That's
My
what happens
name
when you record 10 podcasts in a day.
my name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Chris and Ron as we discuss Ultimate Spider-Man. Jonathan
Sure.
Hickman's.
Love
That's
it.
what we're talking today. We're
Keep that in
talking
there.
Marvel, Spider-Man. So this is the Marvel pod. All right.
Ultimately.
Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing all right now. Let's talk some Spider-Man and Ultimate Spider-Man at that. And good issue. Fun. Should be good.
And Ron, how are you today, Ron?
I'm good, man. I'm good to be back on the helm here with y'all. I took a little bit of a comic hiatus over the last month. There's just way too much going on, so it's good to be able to get back in and chop it all up with you guys today.
Look, sometimes you're just not cut out to talk comics every month, all right?
Yeah. Sometimes I'm a real fan, sometimes I'm not a real fan. It depends on the month.
Exactly.
Really.
Not everybody can spend hundreds of dollars a month for all of these issues.
Very true.
No, I just had to cut some of mine as well. It gets overwhelming, especially because I have this large stack over here that I haven't even read yet. And I have to keep going to the comic shop every week to pick up my comics. And I'm like, I'm falling behind on so many of these because I've had a kid and I've had no time to read these comics. But I was able to read some last night. I read this and Ultimates 3 and 4. Ultimates 4, by the way, is really great stuff. If people are not keeping up with the Ultimates, I definitely recommend, especially Ultimates 4. You don't really have to have read any of the other ones, but it really, you can read it many different ways. You can, it's just like brilliant.
Yep. Agreed.
Okay. We're going to talk about issue 9 of Ultimate Spider-Man, the comic that kicked off this Ultimate Universe. Was Ultimate Spider-Man, Jonathan Hickman and Marco Cicchetto doing great work as always. Let's talk about just our general thoughts first, and then we'll go into the main like 2 to 3 storylines we have in this issue. But let's start with you, Ron. Took a month off. You crack open this comic. I think he froze.
Of course.
Damn it. Let's see. Let's start with you, Chris. Tell me what you thought.
I thought this was a good issue. I thought the stuff with Octavius and the suit was interesting. I thought the rooftop fight kind of with Black Cat was interesting. Lot of stuff going on, but I really loved Peter in this issue. Him talking to himself is what's he doing? He's talking to himself. He does this a lot. Very Spider-Man, whether he's got the AI in his ear or not. I just really love this issue. I loved Harry and Peter talking about the kids and Christmas and what they're doing, and and the paper was like really like MJ was kind of cool. It was like, hey, you guys aren't getting this. The paper's doing great. Just keep covering Spider-Man, and you can write about whatever you want. A lot of good stuff packed in here. So, general thoughts are this is well worth the money this week or this month.
Yeah, worth the $4.99. That's how much they charge for this. No, I agree. I think it was great. We're making. You can start again. We've started seeing the division between Harry and Peter, and we start seeing it again here, right? When Harry takes out Black Cat, and he does live, right? He does live. But when he takes out Black Cat, he and Peter have a discussion about what they should have done, right? And Harry is pretty much saying, I saved you. you were going to get hurt, right? Peter says something very interesting in that we'll get to, but they have this discussion then when he's like, what was that, right? And they're talking back and forth about kind of what's right and what's wrong. And I think this is kind of where I thought they would have some sort of differing opinion, and it will start putting the wedge between them, and we're starting to see it more and more now. Because Black Cat does survive, I think Peter's able to kind of write this off a little bit more, and they start at the end of the issue have like a little playful dialogue at the end, but it really makes me think that this will really start it, right? Like, I think as we continue to see more and more stuff is going to happen that they are going to disagree about, and eventually Green Goblin and Peter Parker will no longer be working together.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think Harry wasn't exactly honest with Peter either, because Black Cat's like, I knew this day would come eventually. You're going to kill me, right? And he goes, why would I do that? Like, no. Like, then Harry's rebooting, and his dad's voice goes, act, don't think, or something like that. Uh, you know, and so it's not like this was a conscious decision by Harry. In my eyes, this was a um, AI dad decision.
Mm. Yeah, that's a good. But again, I think that is. I guess it all depends on what the AI actually does, right? Like, I think it is ultimately Harry that does it at the end, but he is listening to the advice from his dad, right? So then you can say it is maybe that his dad doing it, or making that decision for him. But really, what we do know is that Harry also is the one that chose his dad's voice, and the AI is not actually his dad. So it becomes like this: is it really? Did Harry almost secretly want this anyway because he chose his dad's voice and it is infecting him more? He wants to be the guy that his dad wanted him to be, right? I mean, his dad in the first issue or so is getting on Harry about, or in the flashback issue, I guess it is, issue 5, getting on him about how he's acting, how he's doing this and that. And he, kind of, I don't know, disregards him. But when he does die, then it becomes this thing of maybe he's trying to become what his dad always wanted, and it's making those choices, those bad choices, that are going to lead to like a domino effect here, since he decided to put his dad's voice into as the AI. It's now like this domino effect of he's getting that constant feedback from his dad, but it's not really his dad, right? It's this constant feedback of what he thinks his dad would say, probably. But doesn't give you any of the love because it's an AI. It can't really give you the love part of it, right?
Well, did his dad give him any of the love part of it?
No, but I think if he was the guy his dad wanted him to be, he would have shown more love to him. It's that type of relationship, I think. Like, if you're not who I think you are, I'm not going to give you my full love. You'll never be good enough for me because you're not reaching my standard. But my point is, like, the AI doesn't have that either. So even if he does reach that standard, the AI can't actually give him love either. So he'll always be looking for that validation, but I don't think he's ever going to get the validation.
Yeah, and he's also training the AI to be more like him than his dad anyway, because AI interacts with you, and like it gets smarter based off what you're doing. So yeah, that's interesting. It didn't strike me as a conscious decision. It struck me as a reaction to the voice of his father. That's really where I was at with that.
Um yeah, okay, let's welcome Ron back in. He's back.
I am going to lose my fucking mind in about 5 minutes here. I am furious. What are we talking about?
And
All
now
right,
it's
we were
explicit.
just talking about how we once again see a divide between Peter and Harry start to grow,
Mhm.
right? Especially once he takes out Black Cat, and it
Mhm.
becomes like Peter's able to shrug it off a bit because Black Cat does survive, but that we're starting to see the fractures here that might continue to grow because of him listening to his dad's AI.
Yeah, he even Harry has a quote where he's like, if I'm put to the choice and one of them is about to kill you, I will never hesitate. That's very much a sign that this is going to come back around again for sure. This is not going to be the last time that Harry and Peter have this conversation for sure.
Yes, and I kind of hinted to it when I was talking to Chris about it, but there is a moment where he says like I did this to save you. Peter has a great line. He gets his spider sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
In this issue, it's kind of like the first time we really see it where he's like, ooh, I feel like something's gonna happen. Like, I don't know, it's like this weird vibe I get, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when he says that guy was gonna like kill you or he was gonna hurt you, he says, but I didn't feel anything, right? And that's alluding to his spider sense wasn't going off. So we don't think Black Cat was actually maybe as big of a threat, like that he would have been able to stop him once the
Yeah.
spider sense does go off, that it wasn't needed, right?
Mhm.
This ultimate act here was not needed to almost take Black Cat's life.
Yeah. Well, it was also really interesting the way it played out too. So like his suit like gets shorted out and then he's like screaming for it to come back on and then it only comes on at that last second where he has no time to think and just has to act and the only thing he hears is his father's voice being like do it now. So like I wonder if it was almost an intentional thing whether it's like Octavius like kind of pulling the strings himself or if it's like the suit has become like sentient with Norman. Like there's a few different ways that could go, but I'm wondering if that was like an intentional thing for the suit to short out and then only come on right at that final moment.
I wouldn't be shocked if we kind of get like Harry having the symbiote relationship with this suit
Mm.
without it being the symbiote, right? Like
Yeah.
with it being his dad and with like the technology and stuff, it kind of being in a way of like him needing it for the validation of his father and not like ever really getting it, but also just that constant drive of I need to have this on me, and it'll be kind of like a parallel to the symbiote suit.
Mm. Yeah, it's a great even not just the symbiote, but literally like the sort of goblin voices in the head thing, that
Mm-hmm.
we've seen like in the movies Norman
Like an
struggle with.
addiction.
Yeah, very much so.
He's
Well,
definitely dependent on it. There's no doubt about that part.
so what do we think of Doc Ock? What do we think Doc Ock's? Peter decides not to give them the suit, right? He does get a new suit, that's just spandex, right?
Mhm.
But he also doesn't take the new suit and doesn't leave the old suit with them because he has that conversation with himself of, oh, do we trust this? And knowing what we know about Doc Ock, if he continues the trajectory of every normal Doc Ock, probably a good call.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he obviously wanted to play with it. He obviously wanted to take your. He's got the mad scientist vibe. Maybe it's because of our background knowledge, but he really does just seem obsessive about the technology and getting his hands on it. And I love that line where the AI says, "I will bet a billion credit cards, prepaid credit cards, that he's gonna keep this." So
Mhm.
I thought that was pretty funny. Peter cracks me up in this, very much so.
What do you think, Ron? What's Doc Ock's goal here with the suit? Like, what's he trying to do?
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm sure right now his intentions are pure, so to speak. Like he's like, oh, I just want to, kind of tinker around with this new technology a little bit. But once he gets his hands on it, because he is inevitably going to get his hands on it, I think it's going to be one of those things where it's like, when do you, what's the phrase? the Jurassic Park, like you were so focused on worrying about if you should or if you could that you didn't stop to think if you should. And I think that's going to be the sort of thing where like almost kind of like a parallel to how the suit is driving Harry mad. It's like the pursuit of power through technology that I think is going to probably drive Aqua off the deep end. Or, I mean, like, I think it would be cool to go the total opposite direction with it. Like if he was like a red herring almost, like you're sort of waiting for the turn to Dr. Octopus and like, wondering if he's the one pulling the strings behind the suits. And it turns out that that's like not even the case. Like that would be a cool surprise if they had somebody else that they can sort of pin that on.
Yeah, because they're the reason why they want to do this, right, is because they, for some reason, they don't trust Iron Lad enough right now, right, and they don't want him to be able to track the suits. So he comes up with a way to kind of override that on goblins. It's like sending a second frequency that counteracts it or whatever. But because Peter's suit is so much different, he couldn't find a way to do that, right? So it's like, I have a different suit for you, kind of based off the original Stark and Stain tech, and it's obviously the Scarlet Spider suit, right?
So glad he didn't put it on, dude. So glad. And I like that suit too, but it's like the version of it in
Iron
this
Spider,
one, like
not Scarlet Spider. Yeah,
the bulky. It was a much bulkier version than the.
It was
the
like an Iron Man suit, essentially. It was like it was more akin to Goblin suit than it was to Spider-Man's.
Yeah, and it was a take on the classic Iron Spider suit, which is much more in line with like your classic Spider-Man design. Like it's tight fitting. It's like it doesn't have that blocky feel to it that this one did. So I'm very glad that was like a. It was almost like they intentionally made it look a little ugly, so like him along with us as the readers could be like, I'm gonna stick with the red and blue,
It also shows that he's got good instincts and like he can trust his gut, which is something that's very true about Peter through the series.
And again, it's why it's so smart when we look at how pivotal sorry, it was, how it was that he chose his voice, right, as the AI, because he can trust himself, and it's learning from his normal self that he can have those real conversations with him, and it's not somebody like a Norman in his ear telling him, oh yeah, that would be great. Like I'm sure if he had Norman's voice, it'd be like, yeah, that we trust him. It's great, type of thing.
Give him the suit.
The fact that he had his voice to it, he can have those dialogues with himself and come to the right decision, because Spider-Man always does what's right. Most of the time.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the paper as well here. So this is JJ and Ben. They're working on a story. They're both a little upset that their top eight of their top stories are Spider-Man, and it's only because they've had 8 Spider-Man stories, right? So they're like, 8 of our top 10 are Spider-Man, and it's only because we've done 8, right? If we had done 10 Spider-Man stories, we'd have 10 top Spider-Man stories. But they are looking at it in a different light, and I was looking at it exactly like MJ was, and she comes in and kind of pulls their head out of their asses and says, hey, you now have the audience. Now you can go and tell those stories. It's like when I don't know, like a TV network has like a hit show, and then they're like, oh, now we can put on this other show behind it, and we'll have the viewers follow it, right? And it's kind of that same process of, now we have the viewership, let's give them the story that actually impacts them and that they will be willing to read because they love our other stuff.
Yeah, very much so. Another one that came to mind to me is like those timeshare presentations where they're like, free lunch. And it's like, hell yeah, give me some free lunch. And then it's like, then we can get them in, and then we really got
to sit through this 3-hour presentation.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah, I like the bartender. The bartender tells MJ, be careful, they're celebrating. It was just, that bartender needs a nice tip. He was like such a throwaway character, didn't need to really be in there, and I'm like, okay, very cool.
So we also see too that this big story that they want to pursue in lieu of all this Spider-Man coverage is actually a sort of inside piece on Stain Stark, which, as we know, Harry is currently the head of, and Akka is currently working for. So there's going to
What's
be some
the what's
interesting collisions.
what's the cover of issue 10?
Jonah being held by his pants by the Goblin.
Yep. Yep. I that's going to create more divide, right? I mean, I think we're finally getting to that point where we'll never go back to the way it was for Harry and Peter, and each thing is just going to be another divide. I think there's hints to it when he is telling him he's invited for Christmas. Now, of course, he says he doesn't, that they have a vacation planned, and Gwen's kind of set on that. But I do think that maybe Gwen would have been okay with going to them. But now it's like, do we have an awkward Christmas like in Spider-Man when they go and have Thanksgiving? Or is it by Christmas, this relationship is in disrepair already, in the next 3 issues? I don't know. Like, that's kind of what I'm looking at and thinking, maybe while Christmas is like a big holiday and kind of like a landmark holiday for that we can judge stuff on, timelines on, but I do think maybe there might be hinting stuff being like more fractious by then.
I agree. And I also have a really boring take on it in that they want to have a way to get Harry out of the picture to make that Christmas issue that they teased just be a fun little like Spider-Man Christmas story without having to worry about all this other like tension and fighting and stuff. It's going to be like, him saving fucking Santa Claus, you know what I mean? Or something like that. But I think it's going to be that Christmas issue is going to be a very standalone, fun, holiday themed kind of thing.
Let me read the description here, okay?
Oh, okay. I didn't know okay.
A very merry Spider Christmas. Season's greetings from the Parker family. But why is Peter acting so strangely during the most wonderful time of the year? And what's got Gwen so concerned? So are they still in town? Don't miss this thrilling conclusion of the second arc.
Oh, yeah. So that is 12. So yeah, okay. Yeah. All right. So get my Spider-Man Christmas one shot out of here, I guess.
And let's talk about issue 11, of course, has the new Black Cat, Felicia Hardy, on the cover. That was released a while ago, and we know that her dad's incapacitated at this point, so she's going to take up the mantle, we assume. And so we can kind of see how everything's heading here. We do have a synopsis for next issue I'm going to read here. J. Jonah Jameson, Ben Parker, and the Green Goblin collide. Fan favorite duo Ben Parker and J. Jonah Jameson take center stage in this investigative mystery issue. But in this world of shadows and secrets, every unturned rock leads to danger, and they'll soon have to decide which is a greater challenge, uncovering secrets or keeping them.
So they're going to find out, they're going to go into the lab and find out about Peter and everything he's been doing with Harry and stuff. And it's basically going to be their cross to bear and probably a big, like their arc going forward for at least the next few issues is going to be, do we leak this to the public with their identities or, and risk our family in the case of Peter, or do we do our job as journalists and just cover it,
Right. It'll be interesting. I'm loving this. I can't wait. We kind of have how it is going to build upon these storylines that they've set up. Like we said, that one, we know they're looking in Stain Stark. We know that's where Norman has some stuff. Harry has some stuff. And then, of course, the Felicia stuff in issue 11. And then issue 12 being that Christmas date. Is that going to be a big deal or not? It says conclusion. What does that conclusion of this second arc look like? That's what I'm really excited to kind of dive into when it comes. These next 3 issues I think are going to be pretty pivotal stuff. Why do you keep saying that?
For you today.
I can't say it today. Pivotal.
It's great.
Anything else about the issue?
No, I like the way it ended. I'm sorry, man. I like the way it ended with still I'll get the kids something cool, and Peter's like, yeah, and Harry's like, yeah, something in spandex. He goes, Harry, you might be the worst best friend a guy could have, which is kind of awesome because it's like where they are, but it's also kind of foreshadowing that
Yeah,
Harry and Peter are not quite in sync.
100%.
I was a little surprised that Peter was so ready to shrug off the Black Cat in like the ICU type of thing, being like, "Oh,
Yeah.
you're so terrible, Harry." Ha ha ha. I was like, "Damn,
That's
all right, he's
Harry.
over it."
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a function of the issue being at its end and then kind of rushing it, or
No, I don't think so. I think it was just meant to show, like, the basically Peter just telling him, "Hey, you get one here. You got lucky." And I also think if he had died, it would have gone a lot different. But the fact that he was alive, it's like, okay, we got lucky
Also,
this time.
how mad can you be if somebody says, "I'm going to save your life every time"? It's
Yeah,
like, all right, that guy has my back.
yeah, yep. Yeah, Peter was in pretty rough straits there when Harry fired off that projectile blast. So yeah.
Alrighty. Well, thank you, Ron, for joining us for the last like half of the show.
This whole episode has been a comedy of errors, from the intro to that to trying to say
Pivotable, yeah.
pivotable. Yeah. Should be a fun episode for everybody to listen to.
Thank you all for watching and listening. We will catch you next time when we talk Ultimate Spider-Man issue 10. In the meantime, of course, I have Agatha All Along coverage with Casey McGeorge, so keep listening to those as they drop. But thank you so much. Like and subscribe to us on YouTube. Rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. It helps more people find the show.